Hello and welcome to the Newline shadcn UI course. I'm Eyal and I'm a software engineer focused on front-end applications. I'm so excited to have you here and learn about shadcn UI together. Let's get started. In the context of React, component composition refers to the practice of building new components by combining existing ones. A component, in its simplest form, is a function that takes an input and returns a React element or a JSX element. A component is also a reusable piece of code that represents a part of the user interface. Composing component means you are combining these components to create a new, more complex component. You do this already when you build UIs, and we have already done it in the course. For example, the login button you have built is a composition of a button, a dialog, and the authentication form component. The date picker element from shadcn UI we saw on the previous module is a composition of a popover, button, and calendar components. But why is composition essential? Because it enables us to create complex interfaces through simpler, easier to understand modular building blocks. The best analogy of composition is Legos. You can build a spaceship, a castle, or a car using pretty much the same blocks, just in different combinations. That's the power of composition. React allows you to compose components using props, children, and hooks. In the next lesson, we'll explore these concepts, but here is a straightforward, very simple composition example. In the example, the container component comprises the children prop, and it encapsulates any children passed to it in a div, with a padding of 4 horizontally. It's enabling you to reuse it in different parts of the application. It wraps the P element in the app. This example is simple, but it illustrates the concept of composition, building new components by combining existing ones. Composing components in React and web development in general offers a lot of benefits, making it like a fundamental skill for building applications. Here are the key advantages. So reusability. Composing components allow you easily reuse them across the application. Simplicity. It makes the code easier to understand and maintain by breaking down complex interfaces into smaller, more manageable pieces. Flexibility. Components can be easily customized and extended by being composed differently. Enable the UI to adapt to various use cases or requirements. Testability. Composing components make it easier to test them, as each piece can be tested in isolation, making identifying and fixing issues much easier. Maintainability. It simplifies the maintenance and allowing changes to individual parts without affecting the rest of the application. And consistency. It helps maintain a consistent look and feel across the application by reusing components to ensure UI consistency. The key to good component composition is providing the component user, the developer, with as much flexibility as possible. By not making hard to change decisions about the component design and functionality, you allow the component to be reused in different contexts per your needs. Here are the best practices to keep in mind when composing components. The first is keeping components small, breaking down complex components into smaller, reusable ones to promote their usability and maintainability. The second is separation of concerns, following the principle from software engineering, and ensuring that each component has a single responsibility and is focused on a specific UI aspect. And then encapsulating the logic. Encapsulating the logic within a component to promote the reusability and maintainability and avoiding duplication. By keeping your components small, focused on single responsibility, and encapsulating the logic, you can ensure they are reusable and maintainable. In the next lesson, we will compose a new filter component based on some already existing shadcn UI components. Let's see it. This is the filter component. It will allow users to filter the events data based on the chosen location or date. In this lesson, you will learn how to compose multiple components to create a new component, the filter one. You will add the filter component to the events table in the new events application you have built. The filter looks like this. The filter component is composed from multiple shadcn UI components. The popover, which is the part being opened after the user clicks on the filter, the button, the badge, the command, and the separator. The goal of building the filter is to let users filter the events table by the events location. The filter will have a button that when clicked will display a popover with a list of locations. The user can then select a location to filter the events table. Let's start. First, you need to install and import the required component. In your favorite terminal, run npx shadcn UI at latest, add badge, separator, and command. You should already have the popover and button components, but if you don't, then install them as well. Now let's create a new component in component/filter.tsx and start with importing React. Import the checks icon and plus circle icons from Lucide. Import the cn function and then import the badge component, the button component, and then we want the command components, which are plenty. So the command empty, command group, command input, command item, command list, and command separator. And the popover content and popover trigger components. And last is this separator component. Now the second step will be to create the types. So let's export type option, which is a simple type with value and label. And then the filter props. We need a title and options, which is an array of the option type. A selected options, because we can select multiple options, which is also an array of option. And on change function with the value equal to an array of option that returns void. You're now ready to create the component. Export function filter equals a component. It receives title, options, selected options, and on change function from the filter props types. Then we can immediately return a popover, a trigger, can pass the as child prop, then a button with an outline variant. Size should be small medium. And the class name. We want the height to be 8, the border to be dashed. Inside the button, render a plus circle. Add some margin to the right and make it size 4. Render the title. And then we're going to do something special. Inside the button, check if the selected options length is bigger than 0. Length. Check if the selected options length is bigger than 0. If so, we want to render we'd want to render the selected options to the user. If there is one item selected, we can show the label of it. And if there are more, we can simply show a number to not catch too much width. So we're going to render a separator with a vertical orientation and a max mx margin horizontal of 2 and height 4. Then we're going to render a badge. The badge will have a secondary variant and a class name. Rounded SM, px1, font normal, LG hidden, we don't want to show it for large screens, and a text white for darker mode. Close the badge, and inside of it show the selected options length, the number of selected items. This will be shown for mobile devices. On desktop devices, we want to show either the options or a number as well. So let's hide it for mobile devices with the hidden class name. Add a space x1 and LG flex, so on larger screens it will be displayed with a flex display. Then check the selected options length property. Cut. And if it's bigger than 2, we want to show a badge with the number of selected items. I've copied and pasted it from the top. And if it's less, we want to loop through the options array, the selected options array, and render a badge that will show the selected option name. The class name would be rounded small medium, padding 1, font normal, and dark text white, the same as the other badges. Inside, render the option label, and close the badge. Open the events table component and import the filter component and the option type. Then inside the event table, we need to define a state for the options. Const selected locations and set selected locations. Call the use state hook with the array of option type and set it initially to an empty array. Then let's create a new filtered events variable, and we're going to filter the events based on the selected locations. If the selected locations array have 0 item, meaning the length is falsy, we want to return true. And if not, we want to filter the events based on the location. So we are looping through the selected locations array and checking if some of the locations equal to the current event location value. Then, instead of directly passing the event, we are going to pass the filtered events property. Now we want to add the filter components, so create a fragment here. Then wrap the filter component in a div. And render the filter component. Pass the title location. And the selected options will be the selected locations component. On change, we would like to pass the locations to the set selected locations function. And we also need to pass the options. The options are the locations of the events, basically. We can move it to a variable here. And okay, make it a set, so there will be no multiple items inside. It will keep the list unique, so let's pass in options. And close the filter component. Now rerun the app, go to the browser, refresh the page, navigate to the My Events page, and you should see the location filter component. Now it's not ready yet. If we click on the location, nothing will be open. Let's create the popover content. Navigate to the filter component. And under the popover trigger, add the popover content. The content is actually a command list with the options that allow searching. Render the command, adds the class name to the popover content with width 200 pixels, 0 padding, and align it to start. Under the command, pass a command input with a placeholder of the title. The command input already know how to filter the items inside the command list. Let's render the command list. Add an empty state, no results found. And then we want to render a command group with the options, the selected options. If the item is selected, return the value and then check if the items include a value. Then return a command item with a key equal to the option value and a non-select. Then render a command group and we will render the items inside. Loop through the options using a map function. Let's check if the item is selected so we can show it. Go over the selected options, map based on the value, and return the value. It will return an array of strings, which are the values, for example, New York and LA. And then check if the option.value is included in this array. Then we want to return command item component with a key of option value and a non-select function to handle the select state. Let's call an handle select function with the option.value. Now let's implement the handle select function. Go to the component body and turn it into a function that doesn't immediately return. And create an handle select function. It will receive a string of the selected item value. And then we need to create a small function that will be called getUpdated. It will receive the previous options, the current option, basically. First, the function will find the option inside the options array based on the value. We can also check based on the uppercase version of the value. If there is no option and we can't find it, we can return the previous options. Now we can check if it's selected or not. So in the previous options, we want to find inside the array the item the same way that we did for the actual item in the options array. If the option is selected, we want to remove it from the array. So we want to create a new options array and filter the previous options array. Meaning we are removing the option from the new options array and then calling the onChange function and returning the new options. Then, if not, we want to add the item into the array. So we are spreading the previous options into a new array and calling the option cut and adding the option functions to the array, calling the onChange function and returning the new options. array. Now what you want to do is to create the cut, להוריד כל החלק אחורה. Now what we want to do is to create a new options array. If the option is selected, that means that we want to remove it from the previous options array. So prev options filter, option, and keep every option value that is not equal to the selected one. Now, if the option is not selected, that means that we want to add it to the array. So we are going to return a new array with spreading the previous options and adding the option to the new array. Let's format it so it looks better. Great. Now we want to return it. And we want to call the onChange function with the getUpdated function and the selected options, which are the previous options inside the getUpdated part. Now we can go back to the command item and fix the onSelect and call it once the user click it. Then we can render a div, which will be the container of the actual option item in the list. We'll pass a cn function because we have an isSelected state that we want to style the item based on. The items will have a small margin on the right, size 4, item center, justify center, and a border primary component. Then we want an isSelected Boolean condition. If it's true, we want to make the background primary and the text primary foreground. And if it's not selected, we want the opacity to be 50. This will be the check container. So render inside the check icon only if the item is selected. If it's not selected, we want to simply render nothing because the border of the div will be applied. And the check icon will receive a size 4 class name. Under it, we want to render the span with the option label. That's it for the command items. Let's see it in action. Go to the My Events page. And after you click on the filter, you can see the list of available locations. Let's filter it, for example, based on New York or Bradenton. And we can click on one of the items. The badge will be added and the filters will be applied to the table. Only item from the New York location will be selected. We can add another filter, see the items being applied, see the badge added. And if you remember, if we'll add another item, we'll see the number of selected items. We can remove them all. One thing that we can add is the clear filters button at the bottom of the list. And we can also see it on mobile. Only the number of selected locations will be displayed. So let's add the clear all button. Go to the filter component and render a conditional rendering based on the selected options length. If it's bigger than 0, we want to render a command separator, then a command group, and then a single command item that on select will call the onChange with an empty array, the onChange callback. We're gonna center it using the justify center and text center class names. And the text will be clear filters. Let's see that in action. We can now see the clear filters item. If we click it, all the filters will be resetted. That's it. You have successfully built the filter component.
Thanks for watching. If you want to keep learning, click the link in the description below.
In this course, you're going to learn how to build modern web application interfaces using shadcn UI. By the end of the course, you will be able to build beautiful and accessible web applications yourself. We're going to use shadcn UI, Next.js, and TailwindCSS. The course is split into 9 modules. In the first module, you are going to learn about the shadcn UI way, why it was created, and the core principles behind it. In the second module, we'll create a new project using the shadcn UI template, and we're going to learn about the shadcn UI CLI. In the third module, we are going to fetch articles from a news API and render it in a very cool and sleek website. In the fourth module, you are going to learn about how theming works in shadcn UI and how to customize it. Next, we are going to build an event management applications. Then, we are going to learn about how to use forms in shadcn UI, and then how to build powerful tables. Then, we'll dive deep into component composition, why it's important, and how to use it with shadcn UI. And finally, in my favorite module, you're going to learn how you can contribute back to the shadcn UI project and to open source in general. You're going to build 2 projects in the course, a news site and an event management application. Both applications will be accessible, responsive, and well-styled, and you can showcase them in your portfolio. You'll use Next.js, TailwindCSS, and Lucida Dev, along with shadcn UI, of course, to build the applications. The news site will be a simple news browsing outlet where users can read articles. Articles will be fetched from the newsapi.org site. The site features are the homepage, which is a list of articles with a search bar, with a category filter, an article sheet, which is the shadcn UI sheet component rendering an article, and the filters where the user can filter articles by category. The event management application will be an app where users can create, edit, delete, and view events. They can also register for them. A pre-made API will be used to manage events. The application features are authentications. Users can register on the site and log in. A dashboard that will allow users to create, edit, and delete events. And a user events table where user can access their events through a table that allows pagination, sorting, and filtering. An home page, which is a grid with current events that allow searching, like a timeline. You can see it here. And join event feature, users can register for other users' events.